Okay, looks like most people are here. Sorry about no mic this year. I'll talk as loud as I can. If you can't hear me, pull closer, ask a question. So, Tameshigiri itself, the cutting of mats, is not an art. Okay? It's usually used maybe to test swords, which they primarily did on prisoners a long time ago. Not a bad practice, right? It works better than some of the injections. You learn something from it. And to go through the techniques that you would actually use and how do they work when you feel, cutting things. Okay? You see a lot of people out cutting pigs and stuff. It's not that I haven't done that, I just don't like showing that in public. I think it gives people the wrong idea, cutting water cans, etc. So what we're going to do today is show you some of the things that we do from Namiryu, why the swords are designed the way they are, why you cut the way you cut. So first on cutting. The swords will cut, doesn't matter what you do with them. It doesn't show anything, okay? How you cut makes a difference. So one of the things that's different, especially if you're facing another person with 30 inches of sharp steel, is how can I cut without being cut? How much am I going to advertise what I'm going to do before I actually cut? Just like punches, right? Throw that big punch wide, only this time the guy's coming in with something that will kill you, right? So, the cutting, even though the arms move, happens from inside the body, okay? And it's one of the things that make classical combat arts very different than the modern arts that are used for sport, or personal defense, or esoteric practice. So, in cutting, okay, see how much body's being used. Not big swings most of the time. Sometimes with Tameshigiri we might make it a little bigger because I'm testing a sword and I'm cutting really large targets or multiple targets, like some of you might have seen me cut 3 of these in a row at one time, double cut them on YouTube. So, samurai also wore 2 swords. They wore a long sword and a short sword. Some of the modern styles do not do that, but we always wear a second sword. This is a wakizashi. It's usually 2/3 the length of the long sword. Okay? They also cut very well. Okay? So that's easily a human leg, just to put things in perspective. Working from the draw was also something that the samurai practiced a lot. These are civilian clothes. The pants are split, they're like chaps, they're horse riding pants. Early samurai were mounted archers. The way of the horse and bow was the way of the warrior. Okay? So like cowboys wore chaps, that's basically what these were. You see they're split in the middle to protect your legs, etc. They became a little more formalized later on, just like going to Dallas and seeing all kinds of people that are more hat than horse. So I'll show some cuts from the draw. First basic cut called kesagiri. Okay. And the reason is the sense of honor, etc., was a little different. If a person could be caught by surprise, then it was okay to catch him by surprise. A samurai should not be able to be surprised. So a lot of things they did, one of them is they were very careful on how they walked around each other. Samurai, samurai would not allow another samurai closer than this. You walk non-weapon side to non-weapon side, and everybody wore the weapons the same way. Okay? Doesn't matter whether you were left-handed. Usually in Japan a long time ago, if you were left-handed, they tied your left hand down, made you be right-handed. Okay? And ultimately, everything you do, how you wear, what you do, how you get up and down from the kneeling position, seiza, had to do with weapons handling. So, probably a fair number of former military here is weapons handling. Managing yourself around other people that are close to violence, especially if you serve with your opponents in Afghanistan or Iraq. You were very careful how you manage your weapon and what you would allow them to do. It's no different. Okay? So, the the goal with being able to cut targets more than once is how good was the first cut? Is the first cut good enough for it to sit, or did you pull and drag the cut and the mat's flying all over the place? Okay? If your hasuji is correct, that's the angle of attack of the blade, and your technique is right, the target should not be disturbed over much. I'm going to show some kata and then I'll cut from some of them. Let's get closer. So, kata are forms for practicing. Now, modern people have a misunderstanding of kata. Kata is, as Kuro Sensei would say, not about real fighting. Okay? Real fighting changes all the time. But kata shows you a different way of perceiving and moving. And it's designed, well, very structured in the beginning to ultimately free you to be able to do whatever's necessary in the moment without thinking, even if you've never done that before. So we have kata for Iai Jutsu, where we work from the draw. Now, I won't do anything here for the moment because he's got a sword on me. I have to pay attention. Do I have to step back? What do I have to do? As he comes up, now, notice no clash. There might be a little bump. Here's what happens with some of the modern styles. The Iaido, if I come like this, he drives right through me. Either counters or he can drive right through me. I'm one-handed. So this is very different. You can't leverage or push your way here. What I do is he's coming, I reach past and change the shape of my body, and it skips them like a rock on water. And they skip. There's no clashing. There's no 5 moves to victory. That's Hollywood, right? No 5 moves to victory. There's no ties. What, are we both going to stop when we get there? You're both going to die, which was common. Ayuchi, mutual killing was common. Okay? Another use, I'm going to do a kata where I'm going to use the second sword. So, we're both facing off. I need to try to create a gap or opening here, so I'm going to slowly create an opening where he feels comfortable in raising his sword and put me under duress. I can't even see, and he can't see that second sword drawn. Why is it drawn? It's drawn so that as he skips off of my blade, no block, I can then manage his sword while I'm putting my sword on him. Swords, some of you military guys like M855 ball, they don't have a lot of shocking power. They cut really cleanly through people. But they don't do a lot to them in the process. They're mortally wounded, but they're not dead yet. And the problem is, I can make a mortal cut, and if he stabs or cuts me, we're both dying, and that was common. Okay? The degree of skill necessary to survive this is why the art got so high. Putting swords on people is easier than surviving it. You see, in most martial arts, there's constant exchanges of force. That doesn't work here. Everybody dies. Okay? Another use for 2 swords, okay, is he's going to attack. My sword will still be in the saya. As he attacks with his first cut, I then immediately have to be able to manage the other ones. I can't always get my sword around fast enough. So you draw the second sword. Many times reverse cut, but not always. The tools are valuable, but you have to train with them all the time. So even when we go to bokuto, wooden practice sword, boken, we use both blades. This year, I'm cutting with some blades that Bugei Trading Company is selling. They're 5160. This is not the traditional steel. It's a spring steel, but it makes a very good blade for Tameshigiri, etc. For practice. It's not too expensive. Very well balanced, cut very well. Okay, so there'll be some at booth 9 Victor 9V if you're interested. I'd also like to introduce my nephew Ron Chen. Ron is master swordsmith. Okay, the swords that you see over at the booth. The top one is my favorite sword that Ron made for me a few years ago, and the other ones, Ron is the swordsmith. He has a company now called Sakai Forge. and they're going to be making custom swords as well as other more affordable swords out of Taiwan. Cut called Kesagiri and Gyakugesa. Okay, now these cuts were common because of the kabuto, the helmets that were worn. So instead of coming straight down into the helmet, which is there to protect, you try to cut through either a gap in the armor or through the plates on the side of the helmet. Another cut called kiriage, ground to sky. Okay, these are, so cut this way, cut, and then either dogiri or yokumen, either across the belly or higher up on the person. Now, what's the problem with cutting across my belly right now? I got another piece of steel there, right? So you have to look, what's the person wearing? Sword's not going to cut through this, okay? So I'm actually protected here because of what I'm wearing. But this cut, dogiri, okay, are parallel to the ground cuts. Some through here, some across the chest, okay? Some other draw cuts that are interesting is up close. So there's a lot of things not normally seen. If I'm walking close to a person and all of a sudden I have to draw, see how tight the blade comes to me, okay? And I can slide it around my body again, cut the same way, okay? A lot of stuff for in close, okay? Using your body to cut. Wow. That's what you'd like to see. That's what I'd like to see when I do that. The first mat sitting there like, what? What happened? And then you get the second cut. And of course, that would be on a person. Maybe I came up through here in the moment, cut them, maybe cut their arms. They're not dead, come back down. Cutting to the head, like shooting people in the head, is the fastest way to shut down the human system, right? So that's why that was so common. It's not just what the blow does, but it's also the shock of the steel hitting. It's not that these are heavy, but they're moving awful fast at the end, okay? Stabs or cuts to the body, even if they're catastrophic, might not necessarily do that same kind of damage. Notice I'm wiping the blades every time. Some of you that do modern, especially some tournament stuff, and you cut and you stick it back in with all that junk on it, that's a really bad idea. You're putting all this wet, gunky garbage back into your saya. So, that's an example of using both swords, okay? Cut, cut, cut. You have to be able to use your tools. Things you want to look for in swords as well. Balance is a critical thing. If a sword feels heavy in your hand, especially towards the point, that's not a good thing. So balance becomes a very, very important thing. You notice our handles are longer, and this is actually short for me. A long time ago in Japan, about a third of the handles were the length of modern, about a third were longer than this, relatively speaking, and about a third of the length that we tend to use. There's no perfect way there. Men used what they wanted. The difference is that in the old days, swords were longer, okay, for people that were much shorter. Most samurai were my wife's height, 5'2", okay, and yet the Chushingura, the 47 Ronin, the average sword length there was almost 32 inches. My swords are usually 30 or 31 inches. In this one, I'm going to be placing, stepping back away if someone's attacking from the side. Basically trying to do that in a way that they can't track my body and I'm out of the way. As he cuts right where I was, I cut right underneath it, okay? Remember, deception war is a matter of deception. Reading from Sun Tzu, 500 BC. So what I'm going to do this time is, I'll turn so you can see me. I'm going to walk past this, and we have some reverse draws where we draw the sword reverse. And that's again a proximity thing. How close are we to the person? Okay? So if I'm really close or the ceiling's low, so I'd be walking past, I'd have a reason to turn. I'd turn, come under, and cut that way. Okay? And we'll show that in Kata. So obviously distance tells you what you can and can't do. So I'm walking, I realize threat. I drop this down, and that's what I have to be able to do in the moment. That reverse can also be used. He's very close, he's up, and I'll draw and cut him and manage him as I'm doing that. Some things, because this came up on YouTube by some of these experts. When you're using the sword in a reverse manner, okay, what prevents the person from being able to come underneath you as he cuts is I'm gathering him in the process with the cut. As he hits my blade, it's camming him and unbalancing him for the moment it takes for me to get my blade on him. You can't just hit him and leave them where they are. My blade hides behind me, right? So as he's coming in, I come up and I bring the blade just off. I'm in the center line. He hits my blade, it cams him, and I just drive right through. Okay? I drive right through him. And when you're cutting, you have to think about a couple things. Sir, could I borrow you since you're in the front? Just stand right where you are. Okay. Back just a touch. What I want you to do is start falling backwards, sit. Don't fall backwards. So, here's the problem that comes in with just whacking like you're seeing these guys do. Will this cut him open? Absolutely. Is he dead yet? No. This isn't the movies. Okay, those of you guys been in combat, you know that, right? They just, sometimes they drop right away, sometimes they don't. So, if where's that pressure going? Yeah, right down to your feet. So, I could cut him, he's still there. So, we don't do that. So, I'm not driving off the front. So, this movement, which you can't see, is not like normal twisting, driving movement. When I do that, he can feel it, he can fight that. Right? He can stand there and fight that. I won't hit you with it. Okay? So, what do? Well, we do exchange energy a different way. I come in and I exchange energy in a way that shapes through him and gains me distance because... Point.
Point taken.
Okay. Completely different though, right?
Yeah, I had absolutely no control whatsoever.
You have to be able to do all this right in the middle of the fight. Because when I touch him, it means that he can also touch me. You know, as military guys, we always say, if my enemy's within range, so am I. The problem with that is I could get him 75 meters away, I'm 2 rooms back, he doesn't even see me. Technically you're within range, but practically you're not. The problem here is, okay, my problem here is to touch him, I have to get so where he can also touch me. Okay? So the art is, how do I do that and survive it? Now, I changed short swords here. Samurai had a choice in what they wore. This is a tanto, a fairly long one for a samurai. Not so long since I'm a foot taller than the average samurai. I'd have been a pituitary giant. So, what you have is, they made choices in their tools just like we make choices in our tools. Modern Japanese tend to make everything the same way. The nail that sticks up must be pounded down. But a long time ago, that wasn't the case. You made your choices. You want more curve, you want less curve. You can see this sword has what's called unokubi kisaki. Sometimes called nagamaki noshi because naginata and nagamaki have this. But it doesn't come to the same fullness at the back. It's narrowed way down to provide less resistance. Okay, that was a style. There was lots of styles actually that we don't tend to see in the modern world. Wow. So notice with that cut, I'm starting with the reverse cut, and then I changed my grip on the sword partway through. Okay, I changed my grip on the sword. Again, you practice it so that in the moment you can do whatever's necessary. If I came through here and cut, maybe I'd missed him, right? Or it wasn't enough to stop him. Well, now I have to turn around and I want the sword to be longer now. It's not as long here as it is when I change hands and I can reach. So you're practicing these things so that you have different capability. So when we train, and Namayu is a bugei, that means that there are multiple skills that the samurai need. Iai-jutsu, rapid drawing, cutting from the draw. Kenjutsu, how do you fight with the sword? And the jujitsu, which was based directly on the kenjutsu. It looks completely different, or it works completely different than modern derivations. It'll look to you like, say I was using strength or something. Have I again? Thank you.
Excuse me again.
He's got warrior across his chest. So man works with his hands. Grab, nice and strong. I'm not going to do anything. Strong. So most people lever. They want to step and lever. Okay, but we don't do that. Okay, you feel me fight and lever. Nothing done. Complete relaxation. If he feels any tension, oh, already got to fight, right? Okay, we've already got to fight. Because of my tension. This is the huge difference. Stay a second. Wrong thing. Wrong paradigm for human beings. We're not, you know, you get out. Gero lived in Africa for 8 years. Still goes over there for business. You get over there and you realize we were not designed to outrun, outfight, outscratch, have tougher skin, outsee, out here, or have better smell than the animals out there. Right? So, being strong is only relative. What happened in the old days, instead of being strong, I'm just not there. Move my arm around. Just not there. Now you train so that you can relax this much when it matters, because that's the hard part, right? Not hard on the range, not hard in the dojo necessarily, but in the moments it's hard. The advantage is that the sword teaches you that this doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Male, female, large, small, young, or in the prime of your life. That's all right. Some of you guys are going to get to the prime of your life. It's just going to take time, right? Like your grandpa's probably my age, I'm sure. So what we're doing then is we're using ever less of our physical, contractile, cardio, aerobic skill and ever more of the mass. Now, I have more mass. That doesn't mean that's a good thing. So, got one more. This is the biggest one. I want to remind you, Sakai Forge, go to 9 Victor. It's up in, if you come in the front entry, it's on the right, 9 rows back in the middle. My son Christopher, my nephew Ron will be there if you want to look at swords. I'll come back there myself, we can chat. If you're interested in any of my CRKT knives, my videos from Pantail Productions, how to use a knife properly instead of fighting with the knife, which is a bad idea. Okay, Brian Williams right there has some. So I'll finish this, I'll take questions, and you're free to go. So you can see, an enormously efficient tool. Skilled hands, take care of the zombies for sure. Thank you very much.